First of all, Donald Trump moving his inauguration inside, it would no longer be outside. I totally think this is a complete stunt. And, you don't have to be super smart to see that this is a stunt. If you look back at things that Nixon was doing when he was coming into office and Lyndon Johnson, was, making calls, trying to get him to stop because Nixon was trying to, basically, I think there was some deal that Lyndon was trying to close up, and Nixon was saying, don't close the deal until I get in office because you'll get a better deal if you wait till I get in office. Same shit Trump do. Same shit Trump is doing now, I feel like.
Richard Nixon was desperate. He saw a very, very close election. Hubert Humphrey and he were polling just about even in all the polls.
This time we're going to win.
To checkmate Humphrey, what the Nixon campaign did in secret was an act of political sabotage.
Candidate Nixon acted to try to scuttle the peace talks. He sent his representative to the South Vietnamese to say, don't cooperate, wait till I'm elected, and you will get a better deal.
Audio recordings, declassified in 2008, reveal that just days before the election, President Johnson learns about Nixon's scheme to derail the peace process.
In a desperate attempt to get the Nixon campaign to stop these secret backdoor negotiations with South Vietnam, President Johnson calls up Republican leader Everett Dirksen and accuses Republican Richard Nixon of the ultimate crime.
We have had problems develop. If Nixon keeps the South Vietnamese away from the conference, well, that's going to be his responsibility. Up to this point, that's why they're not there. I had them signed on board until this happened. I think it would shock America if a principal candidate was playing with a source like this on a matter this important. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason. I know this, that they're contacting a foreign power in the middle of a war. That's a mistake. And it's a damn bad mistake. Oh, yeah. Now, I don't want to say so, and you're the only man that I have enough confidence in to tell them. But you better tell them they better quit playing with it. Wherever they are, I'll try to get a hold of them tonight. Thank you.
Less than 24 hours later, a call is patched through to President Johnson.
Mr. President? Yes. This is Dick Nixon.
The peaceful transfer of power from one president to the next is a complex process that begins long before America chooses its next leader. To prepare the candidates to govern on day one, they receive intelligence briefings that are supposed to remain top secret. But in 1968, at the height of the Vietnam War, candidate Richard Nixon secretly uses intelligence from those briefings to interfere with President Johnson's efforts to set up peace talks.
Nixon campaign operatives told the South Vietnamese government to pull out of the negotiations. Don't negotiate now through the Johnson-Humphrey administration. Hang on, you'll get a better deal with us.
In recently declassified recordings, an adamant Nixon can be heard assuring President Lyndon Johnson that he has made no attempts to interfere with the peace process.
Mr. President? Yes. This is Dick Nixon. Yes, Dick. I just wanted you to know that I got a report from Everett Dirksen regarding your call. Dick, I just want you to know I'm not trying to interfere with your conduct of it, but I'll do anything because anything. Well, that's good, Dick. We need to get this more up to date. And I also want you to know this. I've said this. I think the war apparently now is about where it could be brought to an end. And if we can get it done now, fine. That's what it ought to do. The quicker the better. And to hell with the political credit. I feel very, very strongly about this. And any rumblings around about somebody trying to sabotage the Saigon government's attitude, there certainly have absolutely no credibility as far as I'm concerned.
Nixon is lying, and President Johnson knows it. But there is nothing he can do about it, because his proof that the Nixon campaign is tampering with the peace process comes from a secret government wiretap of the South Vietnamese embassy in Washington, D.C. In the political game of chess, it's a stalemate of king versus king.
And as a result, the South Vietnamese did not cooperate in the peace talks. A ceasefire was not brokered. Richard Nixon was elected, and the war dragged on and on for many years.
He's moving inside. I think he's moving inside mostly because his numbers. He doesn't want his crowd size to be criticized. If we remember, Trump had, if I'm not mistaken, he had the lowest attended inauguration in history, or maybe in modern history. Let's go check. The least attended U.S. presidential inauguration in modern history is often attributed to Donald Trump's 2017 inauguration based on photographic evidence and public transportation usage comparisons. While crowd sizes can be difficult to measure accurately, Trump's inauguration drew significantly fewer attendees than both Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009 and 2013. However, if you're referring to a historical inaugurations in general, not limited to modern history, earlier inaugurations such as those in the 18th and 19th century typically had smaller crowds due to limited transportation and communication technologies. For example, George Washington's first inauguration was a relatively modest event as the population was much smaller and the country was just forming. Okay, so I understand that. Right. That's why I said in modern history. So in modern history, Donald Trump has the least attended inauguration ceremony. And I think that this time he just doesn't want, his crowd size to be criticized. But yeah.
Too cold, Donald, really, to have your inauguration outside because the temperature is going to be 23 degrees. Okay, let's just put this into perspective. It was 7 for Reagan. It was 22 for Kennedy. It was 28 degrees for Barack Obama with winds somewhere in the 20 mile an hour range as well. It was freezing. So I'm not sure it's the cold. I think maybe it's that you're afraid of the crowd sizes and that hotels are still available and that a lot of people, as many people as, showed up for, Barack Obama or Joe Biden or whatever, won't be showing up for your inauguration. I think it's the crowd sizes. That number is more important than the temperature number.